Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of Dubai Stars. Today my guest is Mohamed Marwan. Mohamed, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Thank you very much, Anthony. It's a great being here.
Mohamed, for the guys who might not know who you are, give us a quick introduction about yourself.
Okay, so my name is Mohamed Marwan. I usually go by the name Marwan. Everybody knows me as Marwan. Only my mom calls me Mohamed. So what do I do and how do I define myself? I go usually with the title, I'm a business architect. This is what I do, what I've been doing all my life, working in businesses, consulting, leading organizations and team to design a better business. From a technology perspective, organization, capabilities, and processes, and so many other things. So this is what I've been doing, and this actually is my passion: is to build businesses, taking them from a smaller scale to a much bigger one, and I hope I'm doing well in that.
That's amazing. And Mohamed, you are the author of the book. You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Yes.
Before we get to the book and discuss this journey, first of all, we want to get to know how did you come to Dubai, why Dubai, and how old were you when you came to Dubai?
Okay, that's an interesting one. So the first time I came to Dubai was in October '99.
Wow.
On a transit business trip for 2 days. I was going to do a project in another country, and I had to meet the senior consultant over here for 2 days. It was my first time flying from Cairo to Dubai. And it was different. Of course, it was totally different than the Dubai that we know now, but it was also different than some of the other countries that I've been to at that time as well. And my first impression was positive. And then I came a few times until around 2004. When I started leading consulting services for an ERP solutions company, and then I came here more frequent on projects, meetings, and so on. And I really liked the place. Sometimes I came for transit, going to Saudi or Kuwait or other countries, and sometimes I came for extended projects. And then I had this idea in mind that it looks like a good idea to go and live in this place. But there was no concrete plan that I had. It was just a wish or an inclination. And then in 2006, I joined General Electric, GE, the great company. I joined in Saudi. And then due to some changes in the business and the leadership in Saudi, and looks like I did a good job over there as well, they decided to move me to the head office in the Middle East. And this is where I became a permanent resident of Dubai end of 2006. This is why Dubai. Now, since that time, it has been a second home, almost now 15 years. 2 of my 3 kids are born here. And it has been a great journey for the last 15 years in this beautiful city.
Guide me, how was your first experience and the work environment in Dubai? We know it's not very similar to other places. There's something different in here. So guide me, how was your first experiences in here? And how did you cope up with the city and the style?
It was different. Not in a negative way at all, but sometimes it might be, or it might have been too much to absorb, from the first encounter. What I think I did well is just to sit down and observe this multitude of people, nationalities, cultures, even the type of devices, that are used over here over the last 15 years. They're not as diverse as you find in other countries. But what was, I think, sometimes when you have more experience in life, you go back and understand why was it really a nice place. Because I was always a person who's open to other cultures, even from my studies, my bachelor degree at the American University. It was a very diverse place compared to a more local culture in Egypt. I like this diversity. And I turned it the other way around, is that, it's not stressful at all to deal and interact with all of those different cultures. No, just go for it, be yourself, learn from all the other cultures. Sometimes we see other people as strange, but they also see us as strange as well. Okay, so it was more of a learning experience, and it was great. I mean, in one of my jobs over here in UAE, the team that I led and the other extended team in the Middle East and Turkey, I remember I had 16 nationalities.
Wow.
Okay, managing
United
them.
Nations.
More or less, yeah. But I think the mindset that you have living in Dubai calibrates your mind or configures your mind automatically to deal with this diversity.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing that my kids at school. They also have a mini United Nation over there as well. They're friends from all over the world. So, the diversity part of Dubai, at the beginning, it was positively overwhelming, but then it became a lifestyle.
Yeah, it's beautiful because like you will be fit to be living anywhere on the planet without being feeling as a stranger, because like in here you get to learn this multiple cultures and traditions and the celebration that we have, like almost like every week there's a celebration for a nationality. So it's like once you get to learn this stuff, it's something beautiful.
Exactly. I mean, I always remember this feeling the first time I went to Times Square in New York. It was like 2010, I think, and somehow it felt like Dubai. As different as they may seem, but just sitting there in Times Square with the whole world around you, there's lots of similarities with being in Dubai.
Same in London. It's like you feel you're at home, you're in Dubai. Excellent. Amazing, Marwan. I'm going to call you Marwan. I'm going to keep Mohammed for your mom. Let's go with Marwan.
Exactly.
So tell me, what was that inspired you, or how did you get the idea to be writing a book?
Mm-hmm. Great one. The first, I wouldn't call a book, but the first thing I wrote was when I was 8 years old. It was a short story about pirates. Okay. So it looks like there was something between writing and me. And by time, although by studying, I'm an engineer. Okay. But I also had minor studies and parallel studies in philosophy, anthropology, history, and so on. I like the scientific part, but there was always, a part in me that's looking for, other areas to integrate this knowledge. And I used to write in some magazines at the university and so on. So looks like writing was something that I'm passionate about, but frankly, I didn't have time for it. So I focused on reading. This was much easier. And I would say I'm a very I'm a high consumption reader. Okay, I read a lot. I love reading, listening to audiobooks and so on. And for the last maybe 4 or 5 years, I had this nagging idea that I have so much stories to tell. From career perspective, life perspective. I was lucky that I visited more than 29 countries. Okay, so I always have stories from business-wise and so on. And I wanted to get this somehow in writing, but in a structured way. As usual, we always delay things later. There are always other priorities and so on. Until I had this idea about, and this came like 3 years ago, how about writing something about the future, a way to think about the future, and what thinking skills do you actually need to think about the future? That was the question I had. I mean, is anybody equipped to think and imagine and construct a specific future? The answer from my side was no. You need to be prepared somehow to prepare yourself to think about this future. And this is where the idea of the book came, which was mainly about scenario thinking and how to think about the future in a structured way, in an amusing way, entertaining, and mixing different disciplines together.
I find it's like an amazing question, and it's also scary because we don't know where we're heading. Yeah. And the way we're seeing stuff, we're feeling like now, in a way, which is the artificial intelligence, it's coming into multiple industries. We're seeing now, even in Expo, like recently, I've been seeing robots that will guide you, escort you, talk to you. Yes, I feel like, when we were seeing those movies 20 years back about the flying cars and the robots and stuff, gradually it's happening.
Yes.
So I don't know what I feel towards that. If this is gonna be life in the future, if it's exciting for me, if it's scary for me, I really have mixed emotions about this one. But I would love to hear from you, like, what are your thoughts on this one? Where do you see life is heading? How we're heading as a human being, like as the species, how it's developing?
Okay, that's a tough one. Sometimes I agree with you that yes, we get scared when we see things are changing at a certain pace where we're not ready for it, or we assume that this magnitude of change is really big. But I found that part of that is that we look at a smaller snapshot of history, like looking at the COVID crisis, for example. Of course, it was a major thing that happened over the last 2 years. But again, this is just a very thin slice of history, okay? If you go some time back and you see what happened for over 6 years of World War II, or other pandemics that happened, or other catastrophes, or major changes in history as well, we find that those 2 years were not actually a very big deal compared to other people just like you and me who have lived in much, much worse situations. So this is, one perspective. The other perspective is that, again, throughout all of those crises and tough situations over thousands of years, history is telling us that human beings have survived. Now, what was the extent of damage? What was the extent of, being healthy and luxurious and so on? It's always different. And in the same way, a disease might have made all of us panic, okay, or might have wiped some nations hundreds of years ago. There are definitely elements of risks with big changes like artificial intelligence, socially assisted robots, and so many other things coming up. When you look at the applications, you definitely feel threatened. And like any change, I believe there are many areas that you can cope with this change that is coming. There was similar fear when industrialization was introduced maybe 100 years ago, but still other people, they started to do other things and so on. Perhaps what is different about this time is human beings need to upgrade their cognitive abilities, okay? There are so many parameters of or let's say perspectives of complexity happening. The role of AI, the role of technology, the loss of jobs, financial situations, cryptocurrencies, and so many other parameters and variables that it doesn't look like the typical person will be able to handle with all of those complexities. Okay, it is becoming much more complex and ambiguous than before. So, long story short, I believe the main challenge is going to happen how powerful, or what is the horsepower of your brain and your personality, of the way you see things. How do you contextualize what is going on, what is happening, what will happen, and define your plan in all of this. Some might think that this is not the time for planning anymore. Things are changing very quickly, but that's not very much a helpful situation, because if you don't have a plan, then you're lost anyway. And this is where part of the book is talking about is it doesn't have to be like a totally solid plan, day by day schedule thing, but what are those probable or plausible scenarios that will happen in the future, and how are you ready for every one of them?
Adapt to changes.
This is part of it, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's a great point. I mean, adaptability, we always think that, yes, we have to be adaptable, and we keep on repeating this. But if you really don't have a clear idea about what are you adapting to, or how will this future look like so that you start your adaptation, you usually miss it. It's a basic thing, but this is what many people miss.
In my industry, we've been having tons of changes, especially from the tech side, from the CRMs we're using, from the portals, from the stuff. And every time we get something new, we're like, oh, it's super annoying. But then after a month, we're like, oh, this is super helpful. I cannot live without it. This part is being covered. What I want to ask you about is like humanity in general. Nowadays, what I'm seeing is like no one is living the moment. They're living the social media. It's like, for example, you go to a restaurant, you will see 6 people on the table. Each one is holding his phone. No one is talking to each other. And then it's like when the food comes, everyone is rushing to take the picture of the food and to post it as a story or as a reel or as a regular post. And then they will be basing their happiness about the number of likes and comments that they will get on this post, more than them enjoying the company of each other and having a nice conversation. This is the changes what I'm telling you about, which is I'm seeing people being unhappy all the time because nothing is enough.
Yep.
And this comparison that someone is comparing their life to, let's say someone is in level 1 or level 5 and he's comparing a life with someone who's level 50 and just seeing like how these guys are living and how they are not living, it's getting people into depression. Mm-hmm. And now you feel like people are not attached emotionally or anything anymore like it used to be. And this is the side where I'm telling you, like, if it's gonna continue to be, life is going for the tech or the AI or all of this stuff controlling our lives, mm-hmm. I will not be surprised if there will not be any human interaction anymore. If a human was just being like putting their orders from an iPad or a keyboard just for this robot to be serving them or doing whatever they need to do. So this change, which is like the euphoria that we take from humans, from a nice conversation with a friend or a nice dinner with a spouse or your kids or whatever, if it's this getting like disappearing, mm-hmm. where are we heading as a human?
Okay.
I really hope it's not too complicated.
No, not at all. No, and it's a difficult question to answer because let me address it from maybe two or 3 points. The major change that has happened with technology, social media, AI, devices, the internet, whatever, is that it has given an unbelievable rise and easiness to accessibility. Being able to access anything. Information, access friends, access text, access information. This huge transformation in accessibility, I think what had affected our behavior at least over the last maybe 10 years. Okay, so the fear of, I think sometimes it's the fear of not being able to access whatever you want to access anymore is what is driving our behavior on one side. So this is one, the accessibility story. Now, is this going to continue? There are no indication that it will stop. Okay, with all the investments that are being put into technologies, platforms, availability of data, monetization of data, it doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon. However, what we have been taught from history as well is that there is usually a breaking point where humans usually say, come on, we have to just slow down here because this is not going in the right direction. This happened in many trends and many fronts historically, politically, history-wise, ideas, ideologies, and so on. Because you might think of the whole transformation that we're in now as it's a new ideology, okay? And we're just, yes, we got the best out of it. Look at the advances in technology, in healthcare, in communication. There is a very, very big positive side to all the digital transformation that we've been through. Now, it is affecting our brains. We don't have the same peace of mind anymore. Like what you said, the interaction, the human-to-human interaction is getting less. One of the interesting ideas I came through recently is, will there be courses or curriculums coming soon on being emotionally intelligent with an artificial intelligence? Okay, instead of being emotionally intelligent with a person, because you are dealing with entities. This new AI robot, whatever you call it,
software.
Okay, you need to handle it in the right way, and you have to be emotionally intelligent or artificially intelligent or whatever you call it. So I wouldn't say we don't have a definite answer now. There are many red flags being raised. We're not paying much attention yet. This is what I'm seeing, but hopefully we get to the point where we put the brakes we're not going to stop it because life has changed. There is the train has left the station. But there are ways to put the brakes on all of this and see what is best for us and our kids and their future. And, let's see, but it is a scary future.
I mean, like few days back, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp were down for a few hours, and the planet freaked out. I got phone calls from friends asking me if my Insta is working. I'm like, no. It's worldwide like that. It's okay, rest yourself, talk to your friends or family. They're nice people. Get to meet them again.
Yeah, and I think what the good lesson here is that, yes, of course, many people freaked out and it impacted businesses and so many other things. I mean, if you calculate the cost of the damage, it's not small by any means. But the other side is that life went on, okay? There was a few hours of outage. Yes, there were losses, but life went on. It's not the end of the world in any way. It was a good break,
I enjoyed it personally.
Yeah, exactly. It was a very good break.
I would like to know your thoughts about, first of all, the banking system that we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of it? And your thoughts about this is being gone and moving totally to crypto, whatever the coin is.
Okay.
Can you tell me more about this too, please?
I'll start with a story about about Nokia, the company that we all know, and even before this loss they had in terms of the smartphones and so on. But if you look at the history of Nokia itself, Nokia was actually a company that produced paper. Okay, why did it produce paper? Because it was in the communication business. And this was like early 1900s. And their shift towards telecommunication and phone lines and so on is because they said, we are in the communication business, producing paper, so why don't we go into the communication business and work on telephones and technology and so on. Now, why am I saying this? Because banks are in the, let's call it, in the financial services business. And whatever means that are there to provide financial services to people or companies, let's make it easier like B2C or B2B, many of them will have the guts to start changing significantly. The first change that happened was this move to digitalization of their services, and many of those banks are now like a benchmark in terms of their digital services, and some of them are over. We don't hear about them anymore because it looks like it was too costly for them to change. I believe the second wave is going to be a mix of different trends, or like what they call confluence of trends. One is the digital coins and the cryptocurrencies and so on. This is one trend. The other one that for some reason people are not paying attention to is the rise of the fintech industry, especially on the retail side, and crowdsourcing and giving loans without passing through banks and so on. If you just look at those two trends and what are banks doing about them, many banks are really thinking seriously about their future. What is it exactly? Okay, some are enjoying the luxury of regulatory protection. Okay, but this will not survive for a long time. And I think the example that El Salvador did by having the cryptocurrency as an official means of payment is one indicator. Okay. Now, will this happen too fast? I don't think so, because the infrastructure of the banking system is too complex to just change over a few months or a few years. But I do believe that many of the banking services that we see now, especially on the retail side, is going to transform into something completely different. The accessibility that fintech is offering masses, we're talking about millions of consumers, especially in big markets like India, for example, will definitely change the banking industry. There is no doubt about this. The move to cryptocurrencies and digital coins might be a bit more complicated because of the regulatories from the central banks. It's definitely a big change from like the change that happened from the gold standard to dollar in the 70s. This is by far a much bigger change. So, let's see what is going on. But from discussions with many people in the banking industries, there are serious discussions about what are we going to do in 5 years' time. And 5 years is a short period of time. So they're, I wouldn't say worried, but they're serious about it.
Marwan, I've been hearing something. It's really, I cannot work my head around it. So I'm going to ask you as a specialist. They say that the word debt is God knows how many trillion.
Mm-hmm.
Who do we own the money to?
Okay. It's another difficult question, but actually, you know what? The question that I'm asking myself is, why isn't anybody putting the brakes on the number? And we always know the annual meeting in the U.S. about elevating the ceiling of the debt. Not like a few millions more or a few billions. It's like notching it up a few trillions more. And it happens. It passes. And, nobody's amazed about it. And it just goes on. To whom do we owe this money? What's happening behind the scenes in the whole, what do you call it, let's say debt supply or cash supply, is an extremely complicated scene, okay? From private institutions, government institutions, banks, it's a mix of that's not easily understood. Now, there are definitely groups who are benefiting from this short term because there is a supply of cash with a certain interest rate. You get the money again after a few years, and then you exit this part, and so on. The system will continue to work this way until something dramatic happens. Every now and then we hear, from the prophets of crash that the crash is coming. But it actually doesn't happen. Looks like there is more space in the system to absorb the astronomical level of debt that you're currently referring to. But I'm not sure that this will continue for a long time because maybe very soon it will reach a very ridiculous level, okay? That many of those debtors will start asking for their money short term. The mechanism between countries printing money and borrowing debts and the vicious cycle of local currency and hard currency and so on might not be valid anymore. We have seen countries where bad government practices, when they borrow from their local banks, they end their economy into an abyss, okay? So there are a few examples recently where, okay, there is no global failure, but there is big local failure. Now, when will this thing reach a chain reaction where the whole system might collapse? I think we still have a longer time. But what really worries me is that, I don't want to say that nobody cares, but it's not looked at as a very serious problem, okay? And there's a trend to focus on countries' debts and so on. If you look at the other side, which is the corporate debt, many of the big multinational corporations, if you look at their balance sheets, there are some terrifying figures over there. Okay, and those are not necessarily owed to governments; they're owed to private institutions as well. But the cycle of business enables them to continue. It's a question mark. What is the sustainability of this whole thing? But on this side, I'm worried about the whole debt story. The numbers are terrifying.
The inflation. I've been seeing now during this pandemic, like, governments are just printing and pouring incentives, millions, billions, trillions. And I don't know what's happening to the currency, but I know for a fact, like, the bill is not holding the same value as it was before. And we have seen minimum 3.5% of inflation.
Mm-hmm.
How are these governments supposed to take that money back? Is it by raising taxes? How does it work?
I think the question here is, or it's not a question, it's an assumption. It's going to be somebody else's problem later. Okay, this is how I see it. The countries need an immediate solution to many of the problems that they have. There is no room for patience and sustainable long-term thinking and solutions to, yes, okay, let's start fixing this. It's going to be tough, but let's start doing it. Some countries are, some others do not have the same courage or do not have the means. And at one point in time, the system will not be able to sustain all what's happening. And usually this is not, I wouldn't say usually, but what I'm expecting to happen, that an external crisis will come somehow. It can be a climate thing. It can be, environmental. It can be natural disaster, whatever, that hits the financial system in a way that it's not recoverable. And this is when the big question mark will come about the debt problem. But looks like as long as everybody's colluding, it will stay alive for some time. But just one big external flow hitting the system, I'm really worried about that.
So you're telling me now, your cash, what do you prefer to do with it? Keep it liquid cash, invest it into real estate, or put it in gold, or put it in crypto? This is the question that I think 95% of the planet are asking. What should we do?
And I wish I knew the answer.
I just want your personal. What would you do?
Yeah, one thing I've learned as well is that sometimes people think, for example, okay, let's say property and gold, they are physical, they will not be affected. Even inflation happens, they will go up, so it's safe. But what the whole crypto story has taught us is that this assumption is valid if everybody agrees on the standard. But if someone changes the standard, which is a digital coin that doesn't necessarily have a physical backup, okay, then the whole game changes. And then even, who said that gold is the safe haven? If we all decide tomorrow morning that gold is not actually valuable, the crypto is the valuable one, the whole thing will shift. So it's an interesting time to see what is going on with the valuation.
Who's gonna win the battle?
Exactly. From a scenario perspective, I think this is I'm not a specialist in investing, but keeping the balance for some time until we see actually what is going on. A bit of partial in property, a few bucks here or there in gold. Unless you really know what you're doing with cryptocurrencies and so on, you can keep some stock over there. And let's see what happens. What I usually, because by the way, my daughter asked me this question maybe a few months back. She's starting, to see that there's something going on in the world, and those articles talking about crypto and the gold and the dollar and so on. I tell her, apart from all of this, invest in yourself, your learning, your brain. If everything falls apart, this is what will save you.
Yes, the best.
Yeah, so just invest in your brain. This is how I.
But if you want to pick between these four, for Marwan, which one is the safest? We have liquid cash, we have gold, we have crypto, and we have real estate property. Okay. From this four, which is the safest one?
Just from, by the way, my personal experience, which might be different for everybody, just that, that's my own personal experience. I would go for property, gold, cash, crypto.
So property is the safest?
If you're talking about safety, yes. And this was my personal experience. I was never, a very audacious or risky investor. I worked my small investments this way, and it worked. So this is just, my advice. And why I'm putting crypto at the end, because I wouldn't say I understand it 100%. I don't have the guts at this, point of my life to start experimenting with it. Okay, I experimented with other stuff, of course. And by the way, in terms of maybe there's something before liquid cash, which is stocks. I would put this, even before gold sometimes, if you know what you're doing. I think over a long term, it pays off. But with the crypto, I'm looking forward, to a phase where I'm saying, let's start experiment with this and see where it's going.
Marwan, fast forward from here 20 years, your kids will be watching this episode on YouTube. What would you like to leave them a message?
That's a great question. The maybe very few messages. Again, invest in your learning, invest in your brain. Always do the right thing and communicate the right way about it. It's not always enough to just do the right thing. Do the right thing and do the right communication around it as well. Education is what will set you free, if we'll put it this way. And, I hope that all of us are still there 20 years from now when we watch this video together. The last thing is, a quote that I always love from a philosopher that I adore, which is Bertrand Russell, the British philosopher and scientist, is always look at the facts. Okay? That's my advice.
Marwan, thanks a lot. This has been amazing. You said lots of golden nuggets, as we say in here, and I hope the audience will enjoy and resonate. Again, Marwan just released his book. You're gonna need a bigger boat. They can find it on Amazon.
Yeah.
And just Google it. You will see the book. And if anyone wants to reach out for you, we're gonna share your contact details,
sure,
your email, and your social media accounts.
Anthony, thank you very much. I mean, this was a great discussion as well, and I'm looking forward to people reach out to me actually to learn from them. This is what I always do. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. And you've heard it, guys. Thanks a lot for watching this episode. See you in the next one.